As men, especially as doctors, sometimes we hyper-focus on our career, neglecting other facets of our lives. But that is about to change. This is Dads Before Doctors. Some physicians claim their family is their top priority, but their lives tell a very different story. We'll help each other become family men who are doctors rather than doctors who have families. If it's health, wealth and legacy, emotional well-being, parenting, professional goals, or marriage, we're talking about it. Thanks for listening, and make sure to subscribe. This is Dads Before Doctors, and this is your host, Adam Broussard, MD.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Dads Before Doctors. Today, our guest is Dr. Christopher Liu. He's a surgeon, host of Financial Freedom for Physician podcast, multiple-time author and coach. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Adam. Thanks for having me on the show, and I'm really happy to talk to all the dads and doctors out there.
Thanks for joining us. So you host the podcast, and you've written a couple books on physician financial freedom. So what drives you for financial freedom, and how did you kind of get interested in that?
Well, I started learning about financial freedom from a very early age because from an early age I realized that it wasn't how much money you had, it was how much freedom you had, and the most happiest people I saw, they had a lot of freedom. They may or may not have had money, but they were always free. So my search was for what is the how do you get the freedom? So, and I broke it down into 4 components. I started educating myself in my early teens and during medical school. So it came down to time freedom. So your ability to do whatever you want, choice, financial freedom, meaning you didn't have to worry about the bills being paid or where you're going to stay, eat, how you're going to get around, location. So most of the free people were spending the summers abroad and just going, very free. They weren't strapped by one particular location. And then emotional freedom, which I talked about, was happiness. So I started breaking it down, dissecting it, reverse engineering. I saw people that I emulated and wanted to be, and I started reverse engineering, how do I get to where they are from where I am. So I've read a ton of personal development, finance books. Some of the books that really impacted my life were, the first one was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The second one was Getting Started in Options, which really helped me to generate a lot of cash flow when I was a medical student. So in my spare time, I was learning about equities, the markets. I also got started in investing in real estate very early. Another book was Multiple Streams of Income, which talked about this idea of not being tied to one source of income, but having streams of income that you didn't have to work for, that were residual. So a lot of the doctors that I worked with in medical school, they had extremely high salaries. And what was always in the back of my mind is, if something happens, what's going to happen to that salary? A lot of them were making $1 million plus per year. And, if something happened, they didn't have any backups. So the only way they described it to me was to have a large savings or a house or insurance. So those were the primary vehicles for them. But for me, in order to achieve freedom, I had to become an entrepreneur and a businessman and an investor. So that's my story. Go ahead.
I know a lot of people, realize that in the past year and a half with, especially early on with the COVID lockdowns, that all of a sudden, all these production-based physicians, there was no more surgeries happening. There's no more paycheck. People were furloughed or whatnot, and nothing was coming in all of a sudden. So I think that's definitely a big component of, some of the recent drive for physician freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. I think last year was a really big wake up call. So, during the pandemic lockdown, I moved a lot of my businesses to the digital virtual realm. So, I was doing a lot of webinars, virtual summits, speaking engagement, coaching, and, where people that had in-person businesses that depended upon that, they're forced to, for example, rely on technology. So really, we live in a really changed world, and we're at the convergence of so many different factors. So a lot of old paradigms that we were taught are breaking down. So it's really important to educate physicians, especially in terms of their health, their finances, their relationships, their career, and just break it down and focus on each area so they can have a robust quality of life.
Yeah, and that's what we focus on here with Dads for Doctors. That that we are trying to be, you know, men who are dads, fathers, um, spouses, trying to be healthy, financially sound, and, be able to leave legacy, work on our mindset and overall wellness, rather than just being, a doctor and everything else comes second. Because at some point in time, I mean, that, you're going to retire. And if you're rich and fat, or rich and your family doesn't talk to you, and you're still going to be miserable.
Yeah.
Or you finally get to retirement and you are out of shape, and you've been saving all this money so that you could go travel, and you can't go up a flight of stairs at up in Europe at whatever church you're visiting, or then what's the use of getting to retirement with all this money you've saved to go travel.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the concept of retirement is an interesting one because in the past it was just work, climb the ladder, and then at a certain age you retire. But I think the younger generation is really embracing a more free and more independent type of lifestyle. So you can take mini retirements, you can take mini sabbaticals, and really try and incorporate this concept of freedom while you're young, and when you have the energy and the health and the vitality to enjoy it. Because it's just like you said, you don't want to be the richest person but not and not have any friends and not have the health to enjoy it, because then it's really for nothing, right? So there's so many components to happiness and success and freedom.
So I know in our prior chats and conversations before, that you became financially free fairly early in life. So how did you define that you are financially independent?
Yeah. So well, it started. So for example, I define financial independence as, so I describe it. Financial independence was, I was a medical student. I was studying. In my spare time, when I wasn't studying, I was generating. I was generating a high 80 or 90,000 per year, on the side. So that's kind of like financial independence, but really financial independence is something where you're not reliant upon a job, a boss, corporation, and you have residual income to back it up. The next level is financial freedom, which means that you have enough income from either business, an investment, passive income, consulting, something outside of your job, where let's say you lost your job or you quit your job or the economy had a downturn, you would be okay. You could, you still function, you could still travel and that sort of thing. So that's financial freedom. Once your passive income sources meet your current needs, you're financially free. That sets you up for the amount of time you have. So with that time, you can think about things such as impact. You can think about things such as what you want to do, how you want to spend your relationship with your time with your wife and your kids, what sort of legacy you want to leave, or are you working for your kids or your grandchildren for the next generation? So that's financial freedom. There's another level above that, which is called financial legacy or financial immunity, which means that, for example, let's say 2008 happened or 2020 happened again, or something just catastrophic happened. It would have no bearing or influence upon your quality of life. So that's financial immunity, financial freedom. So that's why it's so important to really diversify your income streams, really focus on passive income as opposed to earned income, and focus on residual income where you do the work once and you get paid for life, because that has the highest great amount of efficiency, scale, and it also has the greatest amount of margin as well.
So you were financially free fairly early in life, and then you were an orthopedic surgeon and left clinical practice in your 30s, huh?
Yeah. So it was 2016. I was 38 years old, and I had, I'm looking around myself. I had developed a good skill. And I was just thinking to myself, I was starting to feel like a cog in the wheel. I was really starting to see a lot of my colleagues just get fed up with the system, with the insurance. And, luckily it was 4 years before COVID hit, but I was just starting to see it. And I was like, okay, I was at a point where it was just like, okay, what is the next step? I've accomplished these things. I, became a multimillionaire in my 30s, and I wanted to do something that would have a lasting impact. So I took a leap of faith, and I had a strategy, I had a backup plan, I had real estate savings, I had a good stock portfolio, and so I took a leap of faith, and I took a year off to really do a life experiment where I was a digital nomad, where I tried to run my business from anywhere in the world, which was a great learning experience. It really decentralized where I could be, and what I could do, and it sort of unbundled this concept of you have to be in one place to do something. Yeah. And then after that, I came back and I started Financial Freedom for Physicians, and it really started first with just blogging. And then I wrote 4 books, and that grew into speaking for the C non-clinical. I spoke for White Coat Investors, Peter Kim's Leverage and Growth Summit. I'm speaking for FinCon next week. So it's really grown. I've really impacted a lot of people. People reach out to me stating, how much my ideas have impacted them. So really the mission is, like I said, to really advocate and fight for financial literacy for physicians, and just really get the word out, spread awareness, that there's things you can do to start protecting yourself from outside forces.
That's amazing. That's a really great mission. So when talking to a lot of physicians about, financial freedom, or, leaving clinical medicine early, especially you are, an MD, PhD, you trained in a competitive specialty in orthopedic surgery. A lot of physicians are like, well, I feel like I owe society or owe whatever that, like, I trained to be a physician. I need to work till I'm 65. Like, did you have any of those limiting beliefs, or did anybody outside, like, did their opinions or whatever of why you retiring at 38?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. And it has to really do with, so to make a long story short, I had a lot of resistance from my colleagues and from my chairman. I was, at that time, it was just really revolutionary to retire at 38 and go out and do something new. But I think after last year, people are starting to wake up. What was really interesting was, it was 5 years after 2016, and now people are coming to me saying, how did I do it? when at the time they were calling me, nuts and crazy and throwing my future away. So really, it takes a leap of faith. The medical profession, really, we are risk adverse, and we really do not have for the most part, we don't have a growth mindset. We have a very fixed mindset. There's a lot of old school beliefs. So there's a lot of like generational clashes between newer and older physicians. But I mean, you look around you, the medical profession is really in a state of chaos because, I mean, you just look at, the older population is retiring, the newer generation is just, quitting their careers at very early stages, 5 years in and less. So really, we need more people, physician entrepreneurs. We need a new, fresh set of eyes to come in and really just bring innovation and vitality to the profession.
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of reading a book called Mindset by, I believe it's Carol Dweck. And I feel like every time she starts talking about the fixed mindset, I was like, all right, yeah, it's like 90% of doctors. So I think it needs to be required reading. I actually think a lot of administrators probably need to read it
too. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because, now you're starting to see a lot of physicians struggle financially. And so this signifies a bigger problem. It's not just a lack of literacy, but it's mindset. It's just really a lot of just old school beliefs that, we just need we need better education. We need more thought leadership. We need more influence in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes we've given up a little too much control. So we need to advocate for ourselves.
Yes.
So what would be your most important tip that you would give to physician dads?
Well, one is really because one is really, I think, for physician dads, your family for the most part comes number one. So it's your wife and your kids, and you're working for your family. You're building your family, you're investing in your kids, and you want to see, every parent wants their kids to succeed and do well. And really, the way the world is going, there's a lot of opportunity, but there's a lot of uncertainty. So you really, now, in the past, all you had to do was finish school, get a job, work there 9 to 5 and go home. You could take the weekends off. But in the world, now we have the internet, and now with so many with artificial intelligence and so many upcoming disruptive technologies, we have to really think ahead in order to stay relevant and stay alive. So a lot of, for example, jobs being exported. We have automation, we have artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles. All of these are going to take away from our ability to get jobs. So now the burden has shifted from the physician working for someone to the physician having to create a stable income for themselves. And it can be through clinical practice, but usually it's going to be through things such as real estate investments, consulting, and other types of passive income streams.
Yeah, that's great. So what area, clearly the name of your podcasts and stuff is Creating Financial Freedom, but what area do you think you're crushing it right now?
I feel like I've achieved a lot, but I feel like this is just the first step. So I want to make an impact on the profession. I want to make an impact for physicians. It's not about the money. It's more just creating a legacy. So working for my my nieces and nephews, their future their grandchildren, leaving a legacy. And so that's where it is. My health, my vitality, my relationship. I'm always working on my relationship with my wife. That's something, you have to constantly put effort and invest, to keep that relationship whole. And so that's something I've been focused on. And I'm really excited about the future. I'm always learning about these new technologies, these new areas, these new fields, and seeing how you can use them to innovate and make an impact.
Yeah, I think that's something really key that you mentioned about investing in your relationship with your wife. We take, as physicians, we'll take time off to go to, CME conferences. We subscribe to, all these journals and, read all these research articles on PubMed and whatnot. But how often are we going to parenting, conferences or marriage conferences or, reading, I actually have the 5 love languages for, your spouse and for kids, like sitting on my desk here. Like, how often are we reading things like that? Like, how often are you investing in that relationship with your kids? Are you investing in that relationship with your wife? Like, think back to when you were, not to sound like the 50s, but you were courting your wife. Like, think about the effort you put into that versus, now years into marriage. Like, you're lucky to, say good morning sometimes. So I think that's, something awesome that you, keyed in on there about really investing in those relationships. And, honestly, like, relationships are what matter most. Like, money and, financial well-being is a means, but not the end. Like, it is a means to buy your time back. It is a means to be able to have location freedom, emotional freedom, because you're not, burdened by some horrible job or some horrible circumstance of, being able to, recently in New Orleans, we had, Hurricane Ida come through, and people had, some people still don't, like, we're 3 weeks out and people still don't have, power in a lot of areas. And, we were lucky, but, a lot of my coworkers and stuff, like, because they had established that, they were able to, take their family somewhere else for the period that there was not, electricity or whatnot, or they, were able to evacuate, so they didn't even have to be, around. So, I mean, I think it is, some people may look at that and think, oh, they're just a rich doctor, they can do whatever, but it does take a conscious effort that you're using the finances for that benefit, rather than just like, oh, I have a second home at the beach. Like I'm driving in my three Mercedes and BMW and whatever. Like, being conscious of how you're spending that money and using it to actually, develop those different types of freedom.
Yeah. You said it very well. It's just money is a tool and resource to allow you to do the things you want to do in this lifetime and in this world.
Well, awesome, Chris. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and I think that's an amazing mission that you have, and it seems like you're really reaching a lot of physicians at the various places you've talked, and some of the testimonials that you have on your website. So how do the guys get in touch with you, and how can they learn more?
So they can go to my website. There's it's www.drchrislumdphd.com. and you can enter in your email. You'll get a free 30-minute recording that I did for a private group up in Canada this year. And you can also subscribe to the podcast. So podcast is called Financial Freedom for Physicians. We're on Spotify, Apple, Google. We're also on YouTube as well. I'm on Instagram. So if you type in my name, it's The Real Chris Liu. You can find me there. I'm on Twitter, and I'm all over social media. You can also go to Amazon, check out my 4 books. There's so many. I have so many resources that I've put out there.
You're all over the place. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. So
awesome, man. I appreciate it. There's multiple streams and multiple locations, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, Chris, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, I enjoyed our time together. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
All right.
You've been listening to the Dads Before Doctors podcast. Family men who are doctors rather than doctors who have families. In an evolving and ever fast-paced world, we cannot lose sight of our real priorities. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had fun. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And tell a friend about the show. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at dadsbeforedoctors.com. Questions, comments, suggestions? Email adam@dadsbeforedoctors.com. And find us on Facebook and Instagram at Dads Before Doctors. Remember, the host of this show is not your doctor, your coach, or your financial advisor. This show is strictly for entertainment. Till next time, this is Dads Before Doctors, signing off.